Yes, sir.
Let's have a little chit chat with Lush here.
We could do that.
Was he in detention?
I noticed that you seemed to notice the chat, perhaps having some comments, some chitter chatter, some feedback. What are you taking from the chat and from the fans in terms of your performance?
Pause. No, what do you
Fair.
mean? Like, what do you mean?
Well, you came to me right after the podcast last time and said, like, hey, like, I know there was a lot of comments saying that I was talking too much or whatever, and, like, you know, I just want to let you know that I'm not going to do that all the time or whatever. Like, what did you take? Like, what made you think of that?
Fuck this nigga.
I mean, he said that because we saw him say it in the comments.
Well, I didn't.
And I also, Lush, I don't want you to get into the groove of feeling like you're beyond criticism, which some people do on this podcast. So
Right.
like, we start talking about, yes, exactly. one of them has their hand in the air. In terms of like, you know, I think we should all be able to sort of go back and forth and have conversations about what works and what is good on the podcast and stuff. And, you know, there was like one thing when I was kind of thinking about it after the fact, I was like, maybe at some point I want to point out to Lush that there is kind of like a time and a place for a meth tale. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like that's something that I kind of feel like you could be at risk for doing. Well, yeah, it was good. It was good, I'm sure. I don't really remember. But I think that, you know, that's just like one thing that I might want to throw out there is that like sometimes, you know, that's something to think about is that, you know, like when you want to pick and choose the moments for the meth tales.
No, absolutely. And I felt
Bad
like
podcasting.
Meth tales are like a genre.
Bad podcasting.
It is.
Because it's kind of a genre. The equivalent for me in House Phone is like when we sort of find ourselves just telling like Xanax stories for 45 minutes on the podcast. Because it's like it's kind of like easy low hanging fruit.
I
at a
could
certain
do
point.
Xanax
Sometimes you
stories too, if
Right,
you prefer.
You are the new house phone. Adam's going to just try to pick on you all day.
But see, this is why you are retarded. Is because you say picking on instead of like working on the podcast. Like it doesn't need to be framed as like bullying or like antagonizing because that's not at
I'm
all.
not going to say bullying, but sometimes you can send a fucking text.
No, I
you don't got to do it
specifically-
for the whole world.
Well,
I
no, I
spe-
think this is good content to talk about Lush's status.
I specifically asked for feedback.
That's what I'm saying.
Like I want,
And
to
that's why
improve.
you don't
waited till Tuesday
don't do
to
the
tell you.
victim
Yeah.
narrative that AD does of trying to make everything like, oh, they're picking on me. It's like, no, we can talk about the quality of the product without making it a bullying narrative.
You never
Nah,
picked on me.
No, but you're always like, but you choose to frame me giving you any advice about the podcast as me like basically bullying.
No,
you.
I always take your advice and I implement it.
Yeah, but usually you'll like argue with me for a while first and try to act like I don't have a point and everything
part of the
before you
game.
do that.
It's part of the game.
Here's the thing. I'm used to being the most like verbose person on the pod. I'm used to carrying the conversation. I'm used to being I'm not used to being
LushOne.
I'm not used to being a midget on the shoulder of giants. You know what I mean?
Little person.
So yeah, like, oh, wow. Wow.